Hello everyone, welcome to UGC NET Political Science classes by Drishti IAS. I am Dr. Ashwati. Students, in the last class, we have studied about two concepts in political theory. One is liberty and equality. And in this lecture, we are going to discuss about another two concepts and which are very important ones from the perspective of UGC NET examination, and that are justice and rights. Okay. So, let's start. So, justice. What do you mean by justice? Right course of action. Like we know that the things which we do, whatever we do, how it is going to impact on us and how it is going to impact on others. Very important elements. Okay. So, right, we will be starting from the antiquity or from that time of the ancient times. Like justice mean that right course of action. So, the traditional concept of justice focused on the just man, that if you are a correct person, if you are following the rules, then there will be justice in the society. Okay. Just like the Kautilya's Danda Niti as well as the Dharma Niti, that are the best examples. If you are actually doing the right conduct, then the justice will prevail, right? So, it was primarily concerned with the virtues to enhance the moral worth of a human being. Moral worth of a human being, that if you are how can you create a just society? So, in that just society, each one of us, like each and every element in the society, should be doing the right conduct, then only we can actually achieve a just society. Okay. Performance of duties attached to status determined by the prevalent law and social customs. Now, this is the idea that is related to Plato. Guardian class, auxiliary class, and the third one is the peasant class or the producing class, right? So, what are these people? So, each one of them, performance of duties, like if you are doing your obligation in a correct manner, then you can actually, and who will be determining the prevalent law, whatsoever, the Greek law, Roman law, whatsoever it is. Okay, when you are actually performing your duties in accordance to the prevalent law of that particular political community, then there will be justice. Okay, so it includes the social customs as well. Now, Plato's theory of justice, it was based on twin concepts according to Shefalija, specialization as well as interdependence. Now, the guardian class had this what we call it as, they have to be trained in a way that they are like trained to be philosopher kings in future, right? And the auxiliary class who are actually to fight the war, and the third class, that is the peasant class or the artisans, they are the producing class. Okay. So, each one of them have got a specialization: courage, appetite, and the wisdom. Okay. Now, then after there is a clear cut link also between them, that is called interdependence. So, guardian class are not going to be the farming class or anything. So, they have to be dependent upon the producers. Okay. And as well as these auxiliaries have, like the auxiliary, that the rest two classes, they have to be dependent upon the auxiliaries because they will be fighting the war. Okay. So, the Platonic idea of justice was based on specialization and interdependence. Justice will prevail if each one of us, like whatsoever class you belong to, you are performing your duties in accordance with the prevalent law, then there will be justice. Okay. So, prescribe the duties of different citizens, that I have already mentioned. Okay. Now, justice, balance in society through interdependence and duty, obligation and specialization. This line you can actually find in Shefalija's book on political thought, Western political thought. Now, for Aristotle, distribution of judicial and deliberative offices in accordance with the wealth and merit. So, he also spoke about distributive justice, but don't get confused with the distributive justice of John Rawls. Okay, here it was all about you have to divide the offices, the judicial and deliberative offices, in accordance with the positions as well as in accordance with the merit and wealth in the society, that you have to give all these positions to the people, the citizens basically. Okay, slaves had no right there, only the citizens. Now, the question here is that he also talked about another like but it doesn't mean that when it comes to the criminal justice, Aristotle has mentioned about it that like what if certain person who is actually in a very big position has conducted, or he has has done some crime, then his merit is not going to be the fact there. Okay. So that is also important element, but yes, Aristotle's theory is also called as a distributive justice. It is just about the distribution of the judicial and deliberative offices in accordance with the wealth and merit in the society, the position that a person wields in the society. Now, it depended on whether the power was concentrated with one, few, or many, like Aristotle's idea of what we call it as like the good constitutions and bad constitutions. So, like whether the power was concentrated in the hand of like one person, like monarchy, or few, like aristocracy. Then after the many, that is a polity or the democracy, the what we say, the good form and the bad form. Okay, so polity, which is the good form. Now, in modern sense, justice means material and moral benefits are not concentrated with a tiny privileged class. It means that there are certain resources that needs to be distributed, and these resources are not being enjoyed by a limited few. It should be with all, like it should be. It is not just we are talking about some egalitarian, every other person will be having equal amount of rights or equal amount of thing. No. We have to think in terms of the like every other person should have that space to enjoy her freedom. There should be justice in such a manner that a person is capable of developing his own capabilities. She is capable of undertaking any form of any form of job. Like you may be a good painter, so you need the space to to explore your skill. Then after you need a market. All these things are interlinked. Okay. So now it is not concentrated with a tiny privileged class. In this way, justice is also connected with that of the idea of equality. Now, substantively, justice is realized through a synthesis of that I have already mentioned: liberty, equality, and fraternity. So, you need these all ideas together, all these concepts you need to be to all these there is a necessity for the synthesization of all these concepts to realize the idea of justice as well. Okay, they are all interdependent, they are all corresponding to each other. Procedural justice and substantive justice, very important ones with reference to modern liberalism. Okay. The exponents of procedural justice. Procedural justice is something like, let's take an example, like if arriving at something, okay, all the procedures are being made correct. Okay, the exponents of procedural justice, they only look up to only one aspect, or we can say that if the procedures are correct, then there will be justice. Okay, like to achieve some office or to achieve some some merit or something, anything. Okay, like you have to like let's say that there is a selection committee to select the players for a match. Now, according to the procedural justice, the idea is that if the procedures were met with the correct way, then there is procedural justice. Okay, if procedures are just, then the outcome will also be just, or the justice one. Okay. But for the substantive justice people, they actually look beyond that. Even after the selection, even if the procedure was just, there is a high possibility that someone may, in the position itself, in a good position, may actually do some favor to someone, and there is a possibility that a meritorious candidate was actually put out of the list. Okay, so the substantive justice actually looks up to the overall aspects, like its actual realm is quite expanded one. Okay. Now, the exponents of procedural justice include the Herbert Spencer, and then after F.A. Hayek, Milton Friedman, Robert Nozick. So, we have libertarian thinkers also who are here in the exponents of procedural justice. So, it holds that the market mechanism creates necessary conditions for the most efficient use of resources. So, they are leaving everything up to the market mechanism. So, there is a high possibility that sometimes the market can be manipulated. What will happen? Okay, they are not concerned about it. They are just concerned about the procedures. If the let's leave everything to the market mechanism. Okay, it stretches the principle of open competition. Let there be free market. Let there be open competition. If that is actually being done, then you have to just take a relaxed mode, and then you will find that the justice has been done. Okay. Now, for FAA, state should promote competition and the market should not be reduced to an instrument of distributive justice. So, they are completely against the idea of distributive justice, because to them it is just a leave it to the market. Okay, let there be, like, you know, if when you are actually, it is like being left alone, like if you remember the idea of laissez-faire individualism. Okay, so they are the modern or the 20th century, or the like now we are in the 21st century, still we have these libertarian thinkers. Okay, so this is like an idea of the emergence of that classical liberalism period. Okay, now Nozick, justice in acquisition, justice in transfer and rectification. So Robert Nozick's idea is that if the like the entitlement theory that we famously it is known like that, where it means that justice in acquisition, like we all are having the faculties like brain, hands or what, so we all are endowed with one or the other skill. Now we have to mix it with something which is available in the nature, water, soil or whatsoever. Let's take the farming. Okay, so when we are actually, if the justice is there in the acquisition of certain things, then it, and there is justice in the transfer also. Whatever you have produced, then it brings the justice. So this is the, what you call it as the procedural justice theory. But yes, he did leave a room for the rectification if there is a possibility that some people have been affected by it. So there is a need for rectification. John Rawls evolved a unique methodology that is called the distributive justice, very important one. Okay, and he actually gave it a very unanimous procedure of justice. John Rawls, he applied a social contract theory. He is an egalitarian. Okay, so following the tradition of the social contract, John Rawls has envisaged the original position by abstracting the individuals from the particular social and economic circumstances. Okay, so the original position can be understood through like this. Okay, now I'm not a skilled artist in this respect. Okay, but still I'm trying. Now here, this is a typical society that we see. People are being painted in red, black, green, etc. Okay, it means that caste, class, gender, different types of categories are here. Okay, people in the original position, they are devoid or they are not known about, like, you know, by abstracting the individuals from their particular social and economic circumstances. Here every other person is equal. You can see that all are painted in blue. This is the original position. Always remember this image so that it will help you to better have a good understanding about the original position. Okay. So here the people are not aware about their whatsoever socio-economic conditions. Every other individual is happy. It looks very blissful society. Okay. Obviously, he has applied the social contract theory. That's why Rawlsian ideas actually reflect that of the Rousseau's noble savage to some extent, or we can say that, you know, that social contract theories of Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau. So this is what he is saying. He is actually, he want to achieve this type of society where every other individual is thinking about, like, you know, for the betterment of the society in itself, and every individual is actually abstracted from their socio-economic circumstances. So these individuals are symbolized, symbolically placed behind a wheel of ignorance. So this is that, I should have used the black pen. Okay. Yeah, this is the wheel of ignorance. People are behind it. Okay. Like, and where they are supposed to be deliberating as rational agents. They are rational creatures. Now, Rawls' distributive justice, principle of equal liberty. Each one of us, like each and every member of that political community or the society, person should be having equal access to the liberty. No one's liberty should be taken away. Okay. Equality of opportunity. This is all about acquisition to, like, you know, to, so the officers, positions, etc. Every other person should have the access or equality of opportunity for jobs, education or whatsoever. Okay, but he created a difference principle. This is most important. There is a high possibility that in society, even if we try to think about a egalitarian society, some vulnerable sections will be there. They, due to some reasons, they are not capable of achieving or utilizing these two things and achieve their objectives. So the state has to provide them with something that can actually enhance their life. Okay, so this is the difference principle. So this is a UGC NET question. Match the following: Thomas Pogge, Michael Walzer, Susan Moller-Okin, John Rawls. And so what are their theories? Okay, so we have these communitarians are also here. Michael Walzer I have already discussed in my last class when I discussed about the spheres of justice. Okay, so Michael Walzer is a communitarian. Okay, is a communitarian. Now Thomas Pogge came with the idea of global justice. Thomas Pogge is a disciple of John Rawls. Okay, then later on John Rawls also came up with his idea of justice. Okay, that at the global level, which can be loss of the people, that can be utilized at the global space. Okay, Susan Moller-Okin, she has actually criticized the Rawls and many others for their idea of justice. So feminist conception of justice was given by Susan Moller-Okin. Obviously, John Rawls, it is here distributive justice. Okay. Now, next question that we have here again, you can see that this question came in 2014, this question came in 2018. Some questions are actually very similar as well. Like now they have given, they have added like three thinkers are common. John Rawls is there, Walzer is there, Thomas Pogge, only they have like substituted with the Robert Nozick in this place of Susan Okin. Okay. So Robert Nozick, he is associated with justice as entitlement. John Rawls, aankhein band karke, say distributive justice. Okay. Michael Walzer, communitarian perspective. Thomas Pogge, global justice. Okay. Now, moving to the next question. The idea of justice as fairness in Rawlsian theory flows from the individual. Okay. Now, we will discuss about the concept of rights. Okay. Give me a second, students. Rights. The relationship between the state and individual is based on the concept of rights. So, we all have an obligation towards the state. At the same time, we also have the rights. Okay, rights as the citizens, rights as the members of the political community. Okay. Rights are the claims of individuals which seek to restrict the arbitrary power of the state. What if the state becomes so powerful that people are not having any rights or something? This is typically we can imagine when the Robert Mugabe Zimbabwe or People's Republic of China, or let's take an example of Iraq under Saddam Hussein, like totalitarian dictatorial regimes. Actually they have this tendency that the state behaves like an arbitrary one. Okay, like we often find the human rights violations, those who speak against the state are actually put behind the bars. Okay. Now, rights are claims of individual, it actually protects the individual. There are restrictions obviously, but yes, they are the claims of individuals against the arbitrary powers of the state. So, rights are secured through legal and constitutional mechanisms. There are the rights are actually enumerated, like we have the rights from article number 14 to that of article number 32. We have so many rights are actually mentioned there. Okay. So, rights are necessary to improve the quality of life. Like these are very important with reference to improving the quality of life of an individual. Okay. Now, theory of natural rights, this is what we can say that one of the first among the ideas with reference to rights, it emerged during the 17th and the 18th centuries in the form of natural rights, and it gained popularity in that period. And natural rights actually question the absolute authority and natural hierarchy. This was the period when Europe was going through an upheaval, and after that there were issues between the religious entities with that of the state, and there were many things that were happening. At one level they had these issues from the Ottomans, so many issues were there, and this was just a period when the Europe had faced the deadly plague and everything. So the centuries were being like, people were in the dark age, and then simultaneously this enlightenment and all these renaissance was happening, and this was also the time when the idea of natural right emerged. Okay. So natural rights question the absolute authority of these kings. Okay, that absolute monarchies, they actually, the divine right theories and all these things were questioned under here, as well as the natural hierarchy. How can you say that that person is endowed with such power that that person is above every other person? होता था ना in the feudal societies, like how the people, like, okay, they are the family, he is the feudal lord and his family will remain the feudal lords for centuries. Okay, they will be the feudal lords, and rest of the people who are working in the fields, they will remain as farmers, as well as, like, low paid wage laborers, let's say that they will remain there for the centuries in the coming, or they will be always at the serving class, they will always remain, they will always being forced to be the serving class, and the feudal lords, they are actually having the power to rule in particular villages or whatsoever. Okay. So now the natural rights actually question that absolute king, the absolute monarchy, as well as the natural hierarchy that created. And the major proponents, Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan, his book, John Locke's Two Treatises of Government, Montesquieu's The Spirit of Laws, Jean-Jacques Rousseau's The Social Contract, Tom Paine's Rights of Man. All these books are very important. Please note it down, students. Okay. So all these thinkers actually came up with the idea. They spoke about the natural rights. Okay. Now, legal rights. A little bit of conservative thinkers actually, like, they came up with this legal rights, that rights are not something that is associated with your life when you were born. It is not something inalienable, but rather it should be guaranteed by the state. It should be provided by the state. As you are a member of the political community, it is necessary that you have to get it through the state. So, rights to be guaranteed by the state, it arises out of convention and the common experiences of humankind. It's evolutionary. The proponents felt that natural rights could lead to upheaval in society, because especially Edmund Burke, he was not happy with the revolutions which were happening in Europe in those days. He felt that it will definitely, it is definitely going to destroy the traditional hierarchy or the traditional institutions. That's why we have three conservative thinkers here: David Hume, An Inquiry Concerning the Principles of Morals; Edmund Burke, Reflections on the Revolution in France, he severely criticized it. And then after, Jeremy Bentham's Anarchical Fallacies. Okay, he is not just associated with the utilitarian theories. You should read this work called the Anarchical Fallacies, published in 1796, where you will find his conservative ideas. Then we have to understand about the negative rights and the positive rights. In order to understand negative rights, it's better, like, if you go and think about something related to negative liberty also. Okay. Now, entitle a person to be let alone. The idea of laissez-faire, non-intervention by the state in the economic affairs of an individual, negative rights. Okay. Now, Herbert Spencer, his work, The Man versus the State, where you will find his ideas about, like, negative rights. It means that the person, individual, let him be left alone, let that individual have the freedom or the space, rights to improve himself. Okay. Robert Nozick, again his theory of entitlement that we have anarchy, state and utopia. I don't have to discuss further about it. Okay. Positive rights, it mentions that, okay, there's one more important point. Negative rights also talks about the key idea, that is the night watchman state. Okay. The state is pushed to the position that state has to maintain the law and order in the state, but the state is not supposed to interfere in the economic affairs of an individual. It is like protecting the capitalist class, their factories, maintaining maintaining the like let's say that cutting down possibilities of any conflict in the society, especially the industrial conflicts or the rebellions by the working class, or any form of strikes or anything by the working class needed to be it needed to be shunted out, because there is a necessity that the capitalism should prevail. Okay, that is the negative rights. Okay, now the positive rights. State's role is significant in securing the rights of individual. State has to intervene. First one is state need not to intervene. Here state need to intervene. Protection of rights of the weaker and vulnerable sections, or those placed in a very vulnerable position. Now, the theory of service state. The state has to make certain provisions where it can protect the rights of each and every individual. At the same time, it has to give a special attention towards the vulnerable. Now, Harold J. Lasky's The Grammar of Politics, you can read for the same. Liberty in the Modern State, Democracy in Crisis, State in Theory and Practice. All these works are by Harold J. Lasky. Then we have T.H. Green, Thomas Hill Green, and his works, Lectures on the Principles of Political Obligation. Then he has written this, Prolegomena to Ethics, and these two works actually discussed about the idea of what we call it as the idea of rights. Okay, the positive rights. Then we have the 3 generations of human rights. Now, how the human rights has evolved. First, it emerged, like when we will be studying about citizenship also, we will be studying more about it. Okay. So, the 3 generations of human rights, where the first generation of human rights actually focus more on securing the civil as well as the political rights of the individuals. Let's say that the voting rights, the rights to participate in elections, right to contest in elections, as well as we have this another level, like the women's also fought for their suffrage rights, universal adult suffrage. All these things were part and parcel of civil and political rights. Socio-economic rights was with reference to the bringing society, like that what we say, the rights of the people who are actually, let's say, the women's as well as those vulnerable in the societies. They should have the opportunity principles also came up. That is what we call it as a socio-economic rights, securing, like you need to develop your skills. For that you need opportunities, right? And from there you should have the space to showcase your skills, as well as you should have the access to sit for certain examination to excel, as well as to take that positions as well, if you have turned meritorious in that examination. So these are all the socio-economic rights, protecting the rights of the working class, the labor rights. All these things actually came within this the second generation rights. Third generation rights, now we have this rights of the ethnic and the individual religious minorities. It also now includes the rights of the LGBTQ, the third gender, and many other things are there. Okay. Now, there is a question that which theory of rights claim that rights are inalienable and cannot be separated or taken away from the individual as they are inherent and prior to society and state. Okay, rights are inalienable. It is with, like, you are endowed with these rights even before the emergence of state and society. When you were born, you were actually endowed with all these rights. Theory of natural rights. Okay. So I guess I don't need to explain more about it. Then after this, a statement and reason, as this assertion and reason question, very interesting one. This was asked in UGC NET 2021. Okay, the first statement is John Locke was portrayed as possessive individualist. Second is John Locke was not in favor of merely maximizing the interest. Okay. Yes, the first statement is correct. At the same time, the second statement cannot be called as the correct explanation of the assertion. Okay. So, both A and R are correct, but R is not the correct explanation of A. It is because John Locke, actually he was a person, John Locke was obviously portrayed as a possessive individualist. At the same time, John Locke was not in favor of merely maximizing the interest, because if you look up to his theory of property, where you will find that the idea of how to mix up the labor and many other things, he actually spoke about actually maximizing the you have to develop that society, like the idea of natural rights also, what he says, why we are actually forming a society, that a trust, a government, the basic idea in his True Treatise of Government, he has mentioned that clearly, that why we are actually creating a society why we are selecting a government. It is because to protect our natural rights to life, liberty and property. Okay, so John Locke was portrayed as a possessive individual. Yes, it is true. Okay, John Locke was not in favor of merely maximizing the interest. This is also correct statement, but it is not going to give a kind of a justification to the assertion A, or the first statement. Okay. So, both A and R are correct, but R is not the correct explanation of A. So, students, in this way, we have discussed in today's class about two key concepts in political theory. One is justice as well as rights. So, students, stay tuned for more information. So, see you in another lecture. Bye.